Testing. Okay. Returning to Chapter 15, Part 2. Q. Overhead line. With the paragraph provided with additional requirements for the work performed with the near overhead line with the equipment, the general with the before of the elevated structure, the pole of the tower, subject with the dash for the drive of the climbing with the insulation removed with the equipment makes both man pole for the employer structure the certain to the structure of the cable to sustain additional arm down with the draft of the pole with the other structure cannot be with and with the load will be imposed and it shall be rated otherwise supported so that to prevent failure. New depends with the section contained with the test method, the U with the V with the assertion with the wood pole, the cable of the same for that should be imposed with the employer when the climbing the pole with the paragraph of the pay. Also require the employer to do a certain that the pole can sustain all force that will impose by the work with the be performed when the employer are said to be removed near the exposed energized overhead conductor of the pole may not contact with the conductors. The pole is set with the remove the near the exposed the energized overhead conductor of the employer shown sure each of the employer with the work the electrical protective equipment that you the insulated and user insulated devices when the handled pole with not employed with the contact with the pole with the unisolated part hit her body. The protectively employed with the falling into the hole, the holes are to be placed. Holes shall be attended by employed with the physically guard whenever anyone is working nearby. Alright, insulating, removing the overhead line with the following provision with the apply with the insulation, remove the overhead conductor of the cable. The employer shall be with the tensioning string with the bear with the other equivalent pressure to minimize possibility with the conductor's cables being insulated and remove the contact with the energized power line with the equipment. Protective measures are required in the paragraph B4 with the 3 with over this section with the mechanical equipment shall be provided with the conductor of the cable, the pulling of the tension equipment with which for the conductor cable being installed with the remove the closest enough the energized conductor that any of the failures could energize the pulling of the tension of the equipment of the wire cable being installed with the remove the failure of the pulling of the tension equipment, the failure of the wire carrying cable being pulled, the failure of the previously installed with the line equipment if the conductor is being installed with the remove the crossover to energize the conductors device. Conductors is in excess of 600 volt design of the circuit interrupting device protection line so permanent the automatic reclosing feature of the device shall be made inoperative. 4 lines are installed the property with the existing energized line with the employer shall make the determination approximate voltage of the B and due to the new line with the shall be proceed. The assumption of the induced voltage of the head of the unless the employer can demonstrate that the line with the be installed is not subject to the hazards of voltages unless the lines are treated with the energized the following requirements also apply. Each pair should be ground with increments of the point along with the conductor no more than 2 miles from the ground. Ground requiring a paragraph Q24A with the section shall be left in place until the conductor is installed within completely between the dead ends. Ground requiring a paragraph Q24A with the section shall be removed the last phase of the aerial cleanup. If the employees are working with the bare conductor with the ground shall be installed with each of the location where the employees are working the ground shall be installed with the open dead end with the catch-off points for the next adjacent structure. If 2 bare conductors for the display for the conductor shall be bound with the grounded before installed before handling the equipment including the pulling and attention the device shall be safely operating condition which shall be leveled in line. Loading rates and stringing lines pulling line with the conductor grip the load bearing hardware accessories rigging and hoists may not be exceeded. Pull lines accessories should be repaired and replaced with the defect with the conductor grips may not be used with wire rope and length of the grip is specifically designed for this application. Reliable communication through the two-way radios other equivalent means shall be maintained between the reel tender and the pull rigger operator. The rule on pull rig may only be operated if safe to do so. For the example, the unsafe condition includes the employees the pulling locating the paragraph Q210 Q211 of this section conductor pulling with the hang up of the slipping of the conductor grip. When the conductor pulling line is being pulled within motion when the power device of the employees are not permitted directly under overhead operations or in cross arm except for the necessary to gather the string sock over the board over the other through the stringing sheave. Line live and bare hand work in addition with the other applicable provision contained in this section the following requirements apply to live line bare hand work. Before using supervised use line on the live hand bare hand technique energized circuits, employees shall be trained with technique safety requirements paragraph Q3 of this section. Employees shall receive the refresher training as required in paragraph A2 of this section. Alright, before any of the employees due to the live line bare hand technique on the energized high voltage of the conductor part of the following information shall be asserted the nominal voltage rating of the circuit on which the work is performed, the minimal approach to the distance ground line with the other energized parts on which the work is to be performed, the voltage limitation for the equipment to be used, the insulated equipment, the insulated for the aerial device platform shall be designed and tested and intended for live line bare hand work. Tools and equipment should be kept clean and dry while they are used. The automatic reclosing feature for the circuit interrupting device, the protecting line should be made inoperative with the design of the device. Experiments. Work are not to be performed when the adverse weather conditions would make with a hazard even when after the work practice required in lines of the end by this section are employed. The additional work may not be performed when winds reduce the phase to ground minimum approach dividends to work location below the specified paragraph of the Q313. The section on left of the ground object for the other line equipment that are covered in the insulation guard the thunderstorms and immediate vicinity of the high winds and snow, the storm, the icy storms are examples of the adverse weather conditions that are presumed to make the live line bare hand work to hazardous perform safely. A conductive bucket liner of the conductive device shall be provided with the binding and insulate the aerial device to the energized line of the equipment. Employees should be connected with the bucket liner or other conductive device that use the conductive shoe leg clips or other means. Whether the difference of the potential work site of the hazard employed with the electrostatic shielding designs for the voltage where it being worked shall be provided. Before the employee contact with the energized part of the conductor bucket liner of the other conductive device shall be bound with the energized with the conductor beam for the positive connection for the connection shall remain attached with the energized conductor until the work of the energized circuit is completed. The aerial lift to be with the live line bare hand work with the dual control the lower and upper has solved. The upper control shall be easily reached with the employer into the bucket. The two bucket of the type lift of the cross of the control shall be each within easy reach from either bucket. The lower set should be located near the base of the boom. They should be designed so that they override operation of the equipment. At any time, lower ground level lift of the controls may be operated with an employee, nonetheless, except in the case of emergency. Before employees are evaluated in the work position, all of the control of the grounding level of the bucket shall be checked to determine that they are proper working condition. Before the ground of the aerial lift is evaluated, the body of the truck they should be ground. The body of the truck shall be barricaded with the treated energizers. The boom current test shall be made with before the work is started each of the day, with each time during with the higher voltage of the encounter with the when changing with the ignition with the indicator with the need with the additional type of the test should consider the placing of the bucket in contact with the energized source equal to the voltage encountered with a minimum of 3 minutes. The leakage current may not exceed 1 microampere per kilovolt with the nominal phase to ground. The work of the aerial lift shall be immediately suspended upon the indication of the malfunction of the equipment. Minimum approach distance specified in the table of R6 through R10 shall be maintained for all the ground objects from which the line equipment is potential different with which the live line bare hand equipment is bonded unless it is such for the ground objects. The other lines equipment are covered with the insulation of the guards. While the employee is approaching leaving or the bonding with the energized circuit with the minimum approach for the distance of the table of R6 through the R10 shall be maintained with the employee with any ground part with include lower boom with a portion of the stroke while the bucket in its position alongside of the energized bushing and the insulating string phase to ground minimum approach distance of table to R6 through R10 shall be maintained between all the parts of the bucket with the ground end of the bushing insulator string with any of the ground surface. The hard lines may not be used between the bucket and the boom with between the bucket and the ground. However, the non-conductor type hand lines may be used with the conductor for the ground if not supported from the bucket. The ropes used with the live line bare hand work may not be used for other purposes. Uninsulated equipment, the material may not be passed between a pole structure and aerial lift while the employee working from the bucket is bonded to the energized part. The minimum approach distance table reflecting the minimum approach distance listed in table to R6 through R10 shall be printed on the plate with the durable. The non-conductive material of the table shall be mounted as visible to the operator of the boom. The non-conductive measuring device shall be readily accessible to the employee with maintaining the required minimum approach distance, towers, and structure. Following requirements apply to the performance tower of the other structure of the support of the overhead line with employers ensure that no employees use under the tower structure work in the progress except when the employer can demonstrate that such working position necessary to assist the employee working above. Two tagline similar device shall be maintained with the control of the tower with the section being raised with the position under the unless the employer can demonstrate that the use of the such device create a greater hazard. The load, which would create a greater hazard. The load line may not be detached from the member or section until the load is safely secured. Or except during an emergency restoration procedure, work shall be discontinued in adverse weather conditions that would make the work hazard in spite of the work practice required by the section. Thunderstorm within the immediate vicinity with high wind, snow, the storm, ice storms, for example, the adverse weather conditions of presumed that work with the work two hazards of performance except under the emergency condition line clearance, the tree trimming operation for the paragraph that provides additional requirements for the line clearance tree trimming operation for the equipment used for these operational electrical have the paragraph does not apply for the qualified employees before employee with the client enter for the work around any of the tree. Determination shall be made with the nominal voltage of the electrical power line posing the hazard to employ however the determination for the maximum nominal voltage of which the employee will expose may be instead of all the lines considered to be energized with the maximum voltage. There should be a second line clearance for the tree trimming within the normal. This is unassisted voice communication under any of the following conditions. If a line clearance of the tree trimmer is approached with more closely within 10 feet with any conductor electrical apparatus energized with more than 750 volts, if the branch length may be removed closer to the line of the energized more than 750 volts, then the distance listed in the table of R6, R9, and R10. If the roping if roping is necessary to remove the branch of the limbs for such of the conductor and apparatus, line clearance and tree trimmer shall maintain the minimum of the approach distance from the energized conductors given in table R6 through R9 and R10. Branches that are contacting exposed the energized conductor of the equipment that use the distance specified in table R6. R9 and R10 may be removed only where they use the installation equipment. The tool constructed with the material the employer can demonstrate that the isolating qualities meeting paragraph J1 of the section. Consider the isolated element of the paragraph that the tool is clean with dry. Ladders and platforms, aerial devices may not be brought with close to the energized part with the distance listed in the table of R6 with the R9 and R10. Alright, R16 Line Clearance and tree trimming work may not be performed with adverse weather conditions, make the work hazardous in spite of the work practice required for the section. Each employee performing line clearance, tree trimming work with the aftermath of the storm under the similar emergency conditions should be trained with a special habit of relay with the type of the work of thunderstorm and immediate vicinity, high wind, snow, storms, ice storms, example of adverse weather conditions that are presumed to make line clearance, tree trimming work too hazardous to perform safely. Brush chippers. Brush chippers equipped with the locking device and the ignition system with access panel, the maintenance of the adjustment of the chipper to the blade with the associated drivetrain shall be in play with the securing device and securing during the operation with the equipment. The brush chippers are not equipped with the mechanical in-feed with the system shall be equipped with the in-feed operative length with the sufficient to prevent the employee from contacting the blade with the knives of the machine during the operation. Trail chippers to be attached for the truck with the shall be chocked and otherwise secured. Each employee with the immediate area of the operating chipper with from the table to show where the personal protective equipment as required in paragraph subpart I of the part sprayers and related equipment. Walking iron, work surface with the sprayers related equipment shall be covered with slip-resistant material with the slipping habit that cannot be limited. Slip-resistant footwear and handrails share with the rails meeting of the slip requirements subpart D that may be used instead of this slip-resistant material. Equipment on which the employee standing under the spray with the vehicle in motion shall be equipped with the guardrails around the work with the air with the guardrails should be constructed within accordance with the subpart D with the spot with the stump cutters. Cup cutters shall be equipped with enclosure with the ground with the protective equipment. Each employee with the immediate area with the stump grinding operation, including the stump cutter operator shall wear the personal protective equipment that is required in subpart I of the SPART. Gasoline engine power saw with the gasoline engine power saw operator shall meet the requirements of the statute 1910-266-35 of the SPART with the following. If the power saying the more than 15 pound but the unit on the tree is supported by a separate limit except the work is performed on an aerial lift except during the top of the removing operation with no support limb will be available. Each power saw shall be equipped with a control with a return with the saw to idling speed when released. Each of the power saws should be equipped with a clutch and should be adjusted so that the clutch will not engage the chain drive at idling speed. The power saw which should be started with the ground whether it's otherwise firmly supported, dropping starting the saw with over 15 pounds are permitted outside of the bucket area lift only with an area of the below the lift is clear below. The power saw engine may be started with the operator only when all the employees other than the operator are clear of the saw. All power saws may not be running when the saw is being carried up into a tree by the employee of the power saw engine. That shall be stopped for all the cleaning, refueling, the adjustment, repair with the saw of the motor, except for the manufacturer's service procedure required otherwise. Backup power units using and pruning and clearing. When the backup power of the unit of the running of no other than the operator may be within 10 feet of the cutting head of the brush over the vacuum power of the unit shall be equipped with a quick shut off of the switch readily accessible to the operator. Backup power unit until unit engine shall be stopped with all the cleaning, refilling, adjustment, repair with the saw of the motor, except as manufacturer's service procedure require otherwise. Rope climbing rope shall be used immediately employed with working allowed with the tree with the ropes shall have the minimum diameter of the half-inch with the minimum of the brake strength with the 2,300 pound synthetic rope shall have the elasticity of not more than 7%. Rope shall be inspected before end of each use, and if unsafe, for example, to be covered, the damage of the defect may not be used. Rope shall be stored away from the cutting edge of the sharp tool with the rope. Contact with the corrosive chemical gas or oil shall be avoided. When stored in rope shall be coiled and piled with the should be suspended so that the air can circulate through the coils. Rope ends shall be secured to prevent their unraveling. Climbing rope may not be spliced to affect repair. A rope that is wet with a contaminated extent that is in insulating capacity is impaired with the otherwise not conservatively isolated with the voltage involved that may not be used near the exposed energized lines. Alright, fall protection. Each of the employees shall be tied with the climbing with a rope with the safety style of the employee with the working above the ground with the tree, unless he or she is descending into the tree. Communication failures. Alright, microwave transmission. Employer shall ensure that no employee looks in the open wave guide with the intent of the connect with the end drive of the microwave to for the electromagnetic radiation level with the accessible area with the associated with the microwave communication system extends the radiation protection guide given in the statute 1910-97-82 with the described with the shell area with the producer with the warning symbol described in the statute 1910-97 A3 of the section of this part of the lower half of the warning above the symbol that shall include the following with the statement for the one with the employer can demonstrate the equivalent radiant is in the area where they may not exceed the hazard limitation. The special precautions are required to obtain specific instruction before entering. When an employee works in the area with the electromagnetic radiation could exceed the radiation protection guide, but the employer shall institute the benefit for the ensure the employee with an exposure for the not greater than they permitted within the guide. Such measures may include the administrative engineering control of the personal protective equipment, power line carrier, power line carrier work included the work of the equipment. The coupling carrier with the current to the power line conductor shall be performed in accordance with the requirements of this section pertaining to the work on the energized lines. Underground electrical installation paragraph to provide with additional requirements from the underground electrical installations active land access. A ladder or other climbing device shall be used to the ends for the existing manhole subsurface of valve exceeding 4 feet of the depth. No employee may climb into or out of the manhole or vault by stepping on cables or hangers. Lowering equipment into the manholes. Equipment used to lower material of the toes into the manhole's vault shall be capable of supporting the weight to be lowered and should be checked with defects before use. Alright, before all the tools and material lowered into the opening of the manhole of the vault, each of the employee working in the manhole vault should be clear of the area directly under the manholes. Alright, attendance for the manhole. While working to perform the manhole containing the energized electrical equipment, the employee with the first aid and CPR training meeting the paragraph B1 of the section should be available on surface within the immediate vicinity of the rendering emergency assistance. Occasionally, with the employee within the surface of the may be briefly entered for the manhole to provide assistance with the other emergency. The attendant may also be required with the paragraph the E7 of this section. One person may be fulfill both requirements. However, the attendant required with the paragraph E7 of the section are not permitted to enter the manhole. The employees entering the manholes containing the unguarded, uninsulated, energized lines, parts of the electrical equipment operating with a 50 volts or more required to qualify under paragraph L1 of this section. For the purpose of the inspection, housekeeping, taking the reading of the similar work with the employer working alone may enter for the briefing period of the time manhole will energize the cable. The equipment of the in-service with the employer can demonstrate that these employees will be protected forms of all electrical hazards. Reliable communication from two-way radios or the equivalent means shall be maintained among all employees involved in job. Duct rods or even shall be installed within the direction present with the least hazard of the employee. The employee shall be stationed far end of the duct line being routed to ensure that they require minimum approach distance are maintained. Alright. Multiple cables are present in the work area. The cable of the work should be identified with electrical means unless they identify with the obvious without the reading of the distinct the appearance of the location or readable apparent with the identification. Cables other being work shall be protected from damage. Moving cable to energized cable that are being moved shall be inspected for defects. Or defective cable, the cable of the manhole, with the one with our abnormality that could leave the indication of the impending with the defect of the cable should be the energized before the employer with the work in the manhole, except for the surface of the condition, lack of the feasible alternative to the requirement of the cable to remain energized. In the case that the employers may enter the manhole, provided that they are protected from the possible effect of the failure by shielding the other devices that are capable of detecting the adverse effects of the fault in the joint. Or abnormalities such as oil compound leaking from the cable of the joints, broken sheath of the joint sleeve, the hot localized surface of the temperature of the cable of the surface joints are swollen beyond the normal tolerance of the presumed lead or to be indicating of the impending fault. She continued, the work that is performed with the buried on the cables in the manhole, the metallic sheath, the continuity shall be maintained, or the cable sheath shall be treated as energized. The substation of the paragraph provides the additional requirements of the substation for the work performed. Alright, access and workspace. Access to the workspace shall be provided and maintained about the electrical equipment to permit the ready and safely operation maintenance of such equipment. The guideline with the dimension for the access of the workspace for the electrical equipment substation contained the American National Standard National Electrical Safety Code, ANSI C2 1987. The installation made the ANSI provisions comply with the paragraph U1 of the section. At the installation does not conform with the ANSI standard will nonetheless be considered to comply with the paragraph U1 of this section if the employer can demonstrate that the installation provided the ready, safe, and access based on the following evidence. The installation form of the addition to the addition of the ANSI C2 which in effect at the time of the installation was made. The configuration of the installation enabled the employees to maintain minimum approach distances required in paragraph 1.2 of the section of the working with exposed with the energized parts. The precautions taken to the work with the performing the installation provided with the protection equivalent protection of that would be provided access working space meeting the ANSI C2 1987. The draw out type circuit breaker of the draw out type circuit breaker of the remove the insert of the breaker shall be in the open position. The control circuit shall be rendered inoperative with the design of the equipment permits of the substation. The fence of the conductor fence of the around the substation shall be the ground with the substation fence expand with the section. Remove the fence with the ground and continue with the shall be maintained. Bonding shall be to prevent electrical discontinuity. Ground of the rooms containing electrical supply equipment of the rooms and spaces with the electrical supply line with the equipment that are installed with the shall meet with the requirements of the paragraph U42 through U45 with the section under the following conditions. If the exposed live part of the operating at 50 to 150 volts with the ground are located with 8 feet with the ground on the other working surface of the inside of the room and the spray. If the live operating are 151 volts to 600 volts located within the 8-foot ground over the other work surface area inside of the room or space that are guarded but only by the location permitted under paragraph U51 of this section. If the live parts of the operating are more than 600 volts are located within the room or space unless the live parts are enclosed with the ground and metal enclosed with equipment, while the only openings are designed for the foreign object within the the opening for the deflect from the energized parts. Live parts are installed with the height of above the ground without any other work strip that provide protection for the voltage with which the energized corresponding protection provided with the 8-foot above height at 50 volts. The room space shall be enclosed with the fence and the screen partitions of walls and minimize the possibility that unqualified persons will enter. Sign warnings unqualified person to keep out shall be displayed at the entrance of the room and in spaces. Entrance of the room and spaces that are not under the observation of the attendant shall be kept locked. Our unqualified person may not enter the room or the space while the electrical supply lines and equipment are energized. The guarding over the energized parts. Guarding shall provide with all the live parts operating with more than 150 volts grounding with an insulating cover unless the location of the live parts give the sufficient horizontal, vertical, or a combination for the clearing of the minimum of the possibility of the accidental employee contact. The guideline of the dimension clearing distance of the electrical equipment of the substation contained with the American National Standard National Electrical Safety Code ANSI C2 1987 installation immediately ANSI per 1 provisions comply with paragraph U51 of the section. Installation that does not conform with the ANSI standard will nonetheless be considered complying with the paragraph U51 of the section. Section employer can demonstrate that the installation provision provides sufficient clearance based on the following evidence. The installation conformed with the addition ANSI C2 for the effect at the time of the installation was made. Each of the employee with the isolated with the energized part with which the points closest approach to the precaution taken when the work is performed. The installation provided with the protection equivalent to the protection that would be provided with the horizontal vertical clearance meeting ANSI C2 1987. Except for the fuse replacement and other necessary assessments, the qualified person guarding with the energized part of the compartment that shall be maintained during the operation, maintenance, the functioning of the preventing accident contact with the energized part to prevent tools and other equipment being dropped on the energized part with the guarding of the remove the energized equipment barrier with other insulated installed around the work area to prevent employees who are not working on the equipment but who are in the area from contact with the exposed live part. Substation entry. Alright, upon entry of the attendant substation with each of the employees of those regularly with who they work on the station shall report his or her presence to the employee in charge of the order of the receive the information on special system condition affecting the employee's safety. The on-the-job briefing required with the paragraph C of the section shall cover such of additional subject with the location of the energized equipment, the duration of the work area with the limits of the de-energized work area with the power generator. The paragraph provided additional requirement of the relay with the work practice with the power generation plants. Interlocks and other safety device. Interlocking and other safety device shall be maintained in a safe, operable condition. No interlocking other safety devices may be modified to defeat this function except for the test of the prepare adjacent device with the changing brush. If the before exciter with the generator brushes the chain with the generator and with the exciter with the generator field shall be checked with to determine whether the ground condition exists. The brushes may be chained while the generator and if the ground condition exists. Access and workspace. Addition access to the working space shall be provided with maintained with all about electrical equipment to permit the ready and the safe the operation maintenance of each of the equipment. Note the guideline for the dimension access of the workspace for the electrical equipment and that generation safe with the contained with the American National Standard National Electrical Safety Code ANSI C2 1987 installation. The ANSI provisions comply with the paragraph V3 of the section. The installation does not conform to the ANSI standard will nonetheless be considered the compliant with the paragraph V3 of the section employer with the configuration for the installation provided with the ready and the safe access based on the following evidence. Installation conformed with the addition of ANSI C2 that was in effect at the time of the installation was made. The order configuration of the installation enables the employee with the maintained minimum approach to distance required by paragraph 1, 2 of this section while they're working on the exposed energized parts. And 3. The precautions taken with the work is performed. The installation is provided with the protection equivalent protection that would be provided with the access working space with the immediately ANSI C 1987. Regarding the rooms containing electrical supply equipment, the rooms in space with electrical supply equipment that are installed the shall meet with the requirements of paragraph V42 through V45 of the section under the following condition. If the exposed live with the parts over the operating the 50 to 150 floors of the ground are located within a few of the ground, other working for the inside of the room in the space if the living operating live parts are operating at 151 to 600 volts are located within 8 feet of the ground, other working for the inside of the room or space that are guarded by the location permitted down in paragraph V51 over the section. If the live parts operating at more than 600 volts are located within the room or space, unless the live parts are enclosed with the ground and metal with enclosed with equipment with all the opening, only openings are designed for the foreign objects and so within these openings will be deflected from the energies part with the live parts within show the height above the ground with any with the working surface with the provided protection at the voltage which with the energized corresponding to the protection provided with the 8-foot height is for 50 volts. The room space that shall be enclosed within the fence of the screen partitions as well as the minimize the possibility that the unqualified person will enter signal signs warning and qualified person to keep out of the shaft. Be displayed in the entrance of the room and space. The entrance in the room and space that are not under observation and attendant shall be kept locked. An unqualified person may not be entered the rooms or spaces by the electrical supply line equipment are energized. Alright, V5, guarding and energized parts. Guarding shall be provided around all live parts operating with more than 150 volts over the ground within an isolating covering unless for locating the live parts given a sufficient horizontal vertical or combination for these clearance to minimize the possibility of accidental employment with contact. Note the guideline for the dimension clearance distance of the electric equipment the generating stations are contained in the American National Standard and National Electrical Safety Code ANSI C2 1987. The installation of the ANSI provision comply with the paragraph V5.1 of the section. Installation that doesn't conform with the ANSI standard will then nonetheless be considered complying with the paragraph V5.1 of this section if the lawyer cannot demonstrate that the installation provide participant clearance based on the following evidence: the installation conformed with the addition of the ANSI C2 that was in effect at the time of the installation was made. That each employee will be isolated from the energized points at the approach of the precautions to take of the work as performed. The installation provided the protection equivalent to the protection that would be provided with the horizontal vertical clearance meeting the ANSI C2 1987, except for the use or placement of the necessary access of the qualified person guarding the energized part of the compartment shall be maintained during the operation with the function of the prevented accidental contact with the energized part of the prevent tools of the equipment being dropped on the energized part. The guards of the room from the energized equipment and barrier should be installed with the work area to prevent employees who are not working on the equipment but are in the area from the contact with the exposed live parts, water, or steam place spaces with the following requirement to apply with the work and water, steam spaces associated with the boilers. As designated employees shall inspect the condition before work is permitted after its completion. Eye protection and full face protection is necessary for the shall be worn at all times when condensers or heaters or boiler tubes are being cleaned. Whether necessary to employ the work near the tube end during the cleaning of the shielding of the shall be installed the tube end, the cleaning of the chemical cleaning of the boilers and vessel for the pressure vessels, the requirements apply with the chemical cleaning of the boiler pressure vessels. Areas areas where chemical cleaning is in progress shall be coordinated on all the restricted access during the cleaning of the flammable liquid, the gases, vapor, the combustible materials will be and produced during the cleaning process. The following requirements also apply. The area should be posted with a sign of the restricting area, the warning of the hazard, fire, and explosion, smoking, welding, other possible ignition sources of the prohibited in this restricted area. The number of the personnel of the restricted area shall be limited. Those necessary to accomplish the task safely shall be readily accessed. Water shower for the emergency use. Note C 1910-141 of this part requirements that apply with the water supply and washing facilities. Employee in restricted areas shall wear protective equipment meeting requirements for the subpart 1 of this department, including the not limited protective clothing, boots, goggles, and gloves. Chlorine system. Our chlorine system enclosure should be posted with the sign restriction the entry of the warning with the hazard of the health, the hazard of the fire and explosion. See Part Z with the part with the requirements necessary to protect the health of the employee with the effect of the chlorine. Only the designated employees may enter the restricted area. Additionally, the number of the personnel should be limited to those for the necessary to accomplish the task safely. An emergency repair kit shall be available near the shelter with enclosure to allow prompt repair of the leaks of the chlorine lines, equipment, and containers. Before repair procedures to start with chlorine tanks and pipe equipment should be prepared with the dry air with the isolated from other source of the chlorine. The employer should ensure that the chlorine is not mixed with the material that would react with the chlorine, dangerous exothermic or hazardous materials. Boilers before internal furnace, they ask hopper repair worker of the overhead area of the inspected for possible falling object of the hazard. Falling the object exists. Overhead protection such as planking or nets should be provided while opening the operating boiler door. The employee shall stand clear of the opening of the door to avoid the heating and blasting of the glass may escape from the boiler turbine generator. Smoking the ignition source of the prohibited near hydrogen sealing systems or signs warning of the danger explosion fire shall be posted. Excessive hydrogen makeup of the abnormal low of the pressure should be considered, but the emergency shall be corrected immediately. A sufficient quantity of the inert gas shall be available to purge the hydrogen from the largest generator. Coal and ash handling. Only designated persons may operate the railroad equipment before locomotive and the locomotive crane is moved. A warning shall be given to employees in the area. Employees engaged in switching, dumping cars, or may not use their feet to line up the drawheads. Drawheads and knuckles may not be shifted while locomotive cars are in motion. Alright, when a railroad car is stopped for unloading, the car should be secured with the displacement of the endangered employee. The emergency means for the stop of the dumping operation shall be provided with the railroad car dumps. The employer shall ensure that the employee with working with the coal or ash handling with the conveyor area of the train with a knowledgeable and conveyor operation and the requirements of paragraph V2, V11 8 through V11 12 of the section. Employees not riding on a coal or ash handling conveyor belt at any time employees may not cross over the conveyor belt except the walkways unless the conveyor energy source other than driver that has been locked out with or tagged in accordance with paragraph D of this section. And a conveyor that caused the injury with which started may or not to start with it until the person on the area is alerted with a signal or by a designated person of the conveyor is about to start. If the conveyor that caused the injury when started automatically control with the remote control of the audible device shall be provided with the sounds and alarm that will be recognized by each of them. Point of the warning of the conveyor will start with the clearly heard at all points along the conveyor where the personnel may present the warning device shall be actuated. The device starting with the conveyor shall continue the period of time before the conveyor starts, that long enough to allow the employee to remove clearly of the conveyor system visual warning, maybe even the play of the audible device if the employer can demonstrate that if the will provide equally effective warning if the in a particular circumstance involved. Or exemption, if the employer can demonstrate the system function would be seriously hindered with the required time delay warning sign with the provided the place of the audible warning device if the system installed before January 31st, 1995. Warning signs may be provided in place for the audible warning device until such of the time of the conveyor or in control system is rebuilt and rewired. The warning system shall be considered legible and shall indicate the conveyors and allied equipment may start at any time of the danger if the personnel must be keep clear of the warning sign that shall be provided along the conveyor at any area is not guarded with the position or location. Or remotely automatically controlled conveyors of the conveyors that have the operating station with which are not manned with which over the beyond voice visual contact with the drive area, loading area of the transfer point for the other location of the conveyor path of the not guard with the location position guard shall be furnished with the emergency stop position buttons, pull cords, line switch for the similar emergency stop device. However, if the employer cannot demonstrate that the design function and operation of the conveyor not expose any employee do not expose any employee to the hazards, the emergency stop device is not required. Emergency stop device shall be easily identifiable in the immediate vicinity of such a location. Emergency stop device shall act directly on the control of the conveyor involved with the main not dependent on the stopping of any of the other equipment. Emergency stop device shall be installed so that they cannot be overridden with the other locations. Where the coal handling operation may be reduced for the combustible atmosphere with the fuel surface of the flammable gas dust or for the ignition shall be eliminated safely controlled to prevent ignition of the combustible atmosphere. Located for the hazardous because of the presence of the combustible dust classified to Class 2 hazard location. See Statute 1910-307 of this part. Alright, and an employee may not work beneath or overhanging coal bunker, coal soil, coal storage area unless the employee is protected with all hazards posed by shifting coal. Employee entering a bunker loaded dislodged the content should be aware of the body hardness of the line attached lifeline shall be secured with fixed support over the outside of the bunker that shall be tended at all times the employee located outside the bunker facility. Hydro plants and equipment. Employees working on or close to the water gate valve that indicate that the floor base looms or other locations where decreased water flow with the level of the main post. Significant hazards should be warned and shall vacate such dangerous areas before water flow changes are made. Special conditions W. High capacitators. The following additional requirements apply with the working on the capacitor of the lines connected with the capacitor. See paragraphs M through M of the section requirement pertaining to the energized grounding of the capacitor installation. Before employees work on the the capacitor should be disconnected with the energized source after wait at least 5 minutes from the time of the disconnection short-circuited. Before the units are handled, each unit if the serial is parallel, circuit bank shall be short-circuited between all the terminals and capacitor in case of the track. If the case of the capacitors are on ground with the substation rack, the rack shall be bonded and grounded. Any line with which the capacitor is connected shall be short-circuited before the considered to be energized. Current transfer secondary of the current of the transformer may not open with the transformer to energize with the primary current transformer to be de-energized before the working period of the instrument relay with the other section of the current transformer secondary circuit. The circuit shall be bridged so that the current transformer secondary will not be open. Series street lighting. If the open circuit voltage exceeds 600 volts, the series of the street lighting circuit shall be working in the corner of the paragraph QT where the section is appropriate. Series of the loop may only be opened after the street light transformer has been de-energized with the isolated with the source of the supply, but after the loop of the bridge for the void with the open circuit condition. Illumination. Sufficient illumination shall be provided to enable the employee of the work to perform work safely, protection against drowning. Whenever an employee may be pulled or pushed or may fall into the water of the danger of drowning, if the employee shall be provided with there shall use the U.S. Coast Guard approved personal flotation device. Each personal flotation device shall be maintained with the safety conditions shall be inspected frequently, ensure that it does not have the rot or mildew, water saturation, any other condition that could render the device unsuitable for use. An employee may cross streams or other bodies of water only if the safety means of the last such as the bridge is provided. Employee protection of the public work area with the traffic control device used for the protection employee shall meet the requirements of the statute 1926-200 G2 of the chapter. Before work has begun with the vicinity of the kill or pedestrian traffic may intention the employee with working some of the flags and with the traffic control device that shall be placed with a conspicuous location to alert with the channel approaching traffic. Where additional employee within protection is necessary for the barricade shall be used with the excavated area that shall be protected with the barricades. At night, the warning light shall be prominently displayed Backfeed, if there's a possibility of voltage backfeed from the source of the cogeneration from the secondary system, for example, the backfeed for the more with one energized phase feeding of the common load with the requirements paragraph L. The section apply with the line for the equipment to be work energized with the requirements paragraph of the M and M of the section apply. If the lines from the equipment are to become de-energized, the laser equipment, they shall be installed with an adjusted operating in accordance with the Statute 1926-54 of the chapter. Hydraulic fluid used in the insulated section of the equipment shall provide the insulation with the voltage involved. Exit definitions: affected employee, an employee whose work job the work or her to either the machine equipment, either the service main if the being performed under lockout, tag out, whether who's one requires him and the head to work on the air with the service main if they're in the work area, and then a attendant employee that signed with the remain immediately outside of the entrance and close the others pay for the rendered assistance if the needed employee with the inside. Authorized employee who locks out to tag out the machine's equipment in order to perform the service, if the machine of the equipment effective the employee become the authorized with the employee that meets the employee duties, including the performing services, maintenance covered under the section, automatic circuit, reclose of the circuit to control the device, interrupting, reclosing the alternate circuit, current circuit with a predetermined circuit, sequence opening, reclosing, foul with the resetting and the hold and close of the lockout procedure, barricade, a physical obstruction, the size of the tape, the cone, with the A-frame, the type of the wood, metal structure intended to provide a warning about to limit the access of the hazard barrier, physical obstruction with the intent to prevent the contact with the energized line with the equipment to prevent unauthorized action for the work area, bond, electrical connection with the conductor part is designed to maintain a common electrical point. Bus conductor of the group with the conductor for the server, the common connection for the two or more circuits, the bushing and insulating structure for the including the I don't know. Let's say we skip the definitions, then we'll see what comes after the definitions. Yeah, the appendixes. Let's just go back over here. All right, that's chapter 15 generally.